Seconds later, the starboard side of the ferry's bow collided with Phoenix's port side. Right guys, so in today's video we're going through the accident that happened between the Red Funnel ferry Red Falcon and the motor cruiser Phoenix in Southampton, UK on the Thorn Channel. I'll be reading through the MAIB report, which is the Marine Accident Investigation Branch. If you're interested in reading the report in full, I'll put a link to it in the description box below. At 1600 on the 29th of September, the Ro-Ro passenger ferry Red Falcon departed Southampton with 182 passengers on board for a routine crossing to East Cowes, Isle of Wight. On the bridge were the master, who had the con, and a deckhand who was steering the vessel and controlling the speed. At the same time, the 10-meter motor cruiser Phoenix departed Hamble, Hampshire, with its owner at the helm, accompanied by 3 adults. The motor cruiser was also bound for Cowes. Before we continue, I'd like to thank YouGov for sponsoring today's video. YouGov allows you to take online surveys to earn points and get cash rewards. YouGov has polls and surveys about politics, pop culture, products and brands. We all like to make a little extra money, especially if it means that we can share our opinions about things that make a difference, instead of spending too many hours scrolling through social media. You can take surveys every day and make a little extra money on the side. Give your opinion about topics that matter to you and get paid to do it. You can take surveys while you're waiting in line, taking a break at work, or riding the tube. With the extra cash I make from YouGov, I put it all back into this YouTube channel, buying gear like cameras, microphones, lights, and so on. So be sure to click the link in my description box to take surveys and earn cash today. Thanks again to YouGov for sponsoring today's video. It was a clear, bright, sunny day with a light easterly wind and good visibility. At 16:27, Red Falcon's master calls Southampton VTS, now VTS is Vessel Traffic Service, on VHF channel 12 to advise that the ferry was passing the Hook Buoy. The ferry was making good a course of 140 degrees at 13.5 knots. Meanwhile, the chief officer took over from the deckhand and sat down behind the central propulsion control console. The master was seated on the starboard side of the bridge. By that time, Phoenix had crossed the main channel at about 8 knots and was southbound to the west of Castle Point Buoy. Between 1627 and 1632, VTS radar tracking, which was intermittent, indicated that the motor cruiser's speed was briefly reduced at some point, resulting in an average speed of 6 knots for the period. At 1632, Red Falcon passed to the east of Castle Point Buoy, and an unknown motor cruiser passed down the ferry's starboard side. Moments later, the ferry commenced a slow turn to starboard into the Thorn Channel. During the turn, the master and chief officer discussed the fine weather and several small, slow-moving recreational craft on the Cowshot Spit Bank to the west of the channel. None of these vessels were assessed to be a potential problem. At the time, Phoenix was southbound to the west of the Cowshot Spit Light float and was making good approximately 6.5 knots. Phoenix entered the Thorn Channel at 1634, making good 188 degrees at 7.3 knots. The motor cruiser's skipper was at the helm looking ahead. One of the passengers was seated on the port side of the cockpit facing the skipper, and the 2 remaining passengers were in the cabin below. At 1634, Red Falcon's chief officer steadied the ferry in the Thorn Channel on a heading of about 216 degrees. The bright sun was now about 25 degrees off the starboard bow, with significant glare being reflected off the water. However, the master, who was using sunshades over prescription glasses, intended that the ferry remain on this heading for only a very short period before turning to the south to pass west of the North Thorn Buoy. He and the chief officer, both whom remained seated, were aware of a yacht on the port bow. and decided not to turn to the south before the yacht was sufficiently clear down the ferry's port side. At 16:35, Red Falcon started to turn to port. Seconds later, the starboard side of the ferry's bow collided with Phoenix's port side. The motor cruiser was pinned against the ferry's bow for about 18 seconds, during which time it was pushed over to starboard to an angle of approximately 40 degrees. As Phoenix detached from Red Falcon's bow, the motor cruiser immediately returned upright and was left in the ferry's wake. Several small nearby vessels quickly closed to assist and found Phoenix's occupants shaken, but luckily uninjured. The yacht Tinkerbell alerted Solent Coast Guard, which requested the launch of the Cowes RNLI inshore lifeboat. Phoenix's starboard engine was stopped and could not be restarted. However, the motor cruiser was able to continue its passage to Cowes using its port engine and escorted by the lifeboat. At 17:20, Phoenix moored alongside Shepherd's Wharf in West Cowes, where it was met by the Cowes harbour master. Phoenix's owner appeared to be coherent and not under the influence of alcohol. Red Falcon's master and chief officer were unaware of the collision and continued to turn the ferry to port. Meanwhile, several of the ferry's passengers who had witnessed the collision from upper deck alerted the onboard service manager. At 16:44, the service manager went to the bridge and relayed the passengers' reports to the master and chief officer. The master and chief officer felt sure that Red Falcon had not been involved in a collision, and as the ferry was already committed to entering the River Medina in a strong tidal stream, decided to continue into East Cowes. At 16:53, Red Falcon berthed at East Cowes, where the master and chief officer reviewed the ferry's CCTV recordings. Footage of the collision was found, and a check for damage identified marks and debris on the ship's forward belting. At 17:15, the master informed Southampton VTS and Red Funnel's head of ferry operations of the collision. The ferry then sailed for Southampton, where its master and chief officer were tested for drugs and alcohol use on arrival. The test results were negative. So there we have it, guys. All people on board Phoenix were extremely lucky. That could have easily been a fatal accident. This is why maintaining a proper lookout, not only by the ferry, but by Phoenix, is very, very important. Always be aware of your surroundings. Be sure to check out this video of the captain's report in relation to the accident that happened with the super yacht Go. Thank you for watching. Be careful out there. I look forward to seeing you all next time.